Hello again, it's Jess, or JashiiCorrin, and today we're going to be having a look at what's called FAUXLIGRAPHY, so like calligraphy but fake. For those of you who've ever tried to use a brush pen like the Tombow dual brush pen or the Pentel Art sign pen, or even one of the Faber-Castell Pitt artist pens with the brush tip, you'll know that these are really tricky to use when you're just starting out and do take an awful lot of practice. This is where something like FAUXLIGRAPHY can be really helpful because it gives you the aesthetic of having calligraphy writing without having to have the skills of a calligrapher. So what I'm going to go over in today's video is the basics of FAUXLIGRAPhy and some of the fun kind of things you can do with it to make your writing a little bit more pretty. For the basics section, I'm going to be using the Faber-Castell Pitt artist pens in black and also in deep scarlet red, as well as the Tombow dual brush marker in the colour 673. So the general idea with calligraphy is that any stroke in a letter that goes downwards is thick, whereas any stroke that goes upwards is thin. So for instance, if we take something like the letter A, you can see that in forming this letter, we go up, then down, back up, back down, and then finally back up at the end. So the general rule we want to follow here is that any time we went downwards with a stroke, we want to thicken up that section. So remember we had up, then down, back up, and back down. At this stage, you now have the opportunity to either fill that section in or leave it blank, as I've done in the title. The base lettering of your words can be done in just regular cursive, and then you go in afterwards and thicken up any stroke that goes downwards. As part of this video, what I'm trying to do is, using different colours, illustrate where the base letter is and where we've gone and thickened up the downstrokes. When you're using this technique, however, you may choose just to do this in one colour. You can see here that using the FAUXLIGRAPHY technique, we've made it appear that that downstroke of the F was written with a thicker tip, or with more pressure applied. So you can see that the general process we're taking here is, firstly, doing the base lettering. Secondly, thickening any downstrokes on each letter. And thirdly, filling in the gaps. A question that's commonly asked about the thickening of the downstrokes is which side you actually thicken towards. And there are actually two components to the answer for this question. One is to do with preference, and two is to do with your general letter forms. For example, when I draw out the letter A, I will typically thicken both downward sections towards the right. This is the same for most of my letter forms, except for some exceptions like S, the second half of B, and Z. As well as the second half of P. The second half of the answer, regarding the letter forms, is all about what you actually have room to thicken. So for instance, for my A's, most of the time I will thicken to the right, but if I draw an A that's quite squashed, Thickening to the right here wouldn't give me the kind of aesthetic that I'm looking for, so I would then choose to thicken to the left. In terms of the third step for filling in the gaps, this is where you can have a lot more fun. Of course, you can leave them open, or you can try with a variety of colours or patterns, or really anything you want. So as we've had before, you can just go and colour it fully in with the same pen you've been doing your writing with. Or you may choose to leave it blank. You could go in with some kind of a pattern shape, which can be a really good way to hide any intersecting lines. You may choose to fill it in with a different colour, or maybe even a combination of a few. You can also use this to practice gradients and shading. Of course, if you prefer it, you could also go with a colour and a pattern. Or to add even more depth, you could include a drop shadow. The short story is, anything goes, really. Doing good fauxligraphy does take a little bit of practice, but I'd say it doesn't take anywhere near as much practice as actual brush lettering does. You don't have to hold your pen in a fancy way, you don't have to learn how to apply the right amount of pressure to get the letter forms that you want. Mostly you just have to get used to noticing where the downstrokes of your letter forms actually are. In terms of some general tips for making nice looking fauxligraphy, the first one for sure would be leaving space to actually thicken the downstrokes. Letter forms that are written on the thinner side of things tend to look quite squashed when you do go and add those thickened downstrokes. One letter that this is particularly noticeable on is the letter M. If your letter M looks something like this and has each of those downward stroking sections quite close together, it means that when you go and thicken those, your letter is going to look really squashed. To get around this, when you're actually just writing out the basic letter form, make sure that those downstrokes are a little bit further apart than you'd usually do it. This way, when you go in and put your downstrokes in, your letter form will look a lot more well spaced. The second tip would have to be actually just paying attention to where your downstrokes actually are. Although the thickening of upstrokes or horizontal strokes can add a little bit of interest to your writing, if what you're trying to achieve is fauxligraphy that looks like actual brush lettering, realistically only the downstrokes should be thickened. As we've seen previously with A, the downstrokes are found here and here. Thickening of the upstrokes would occur here, here, and here. This isn't to say that people typically thicken just the upstrokes as a mistake, but it can make your writing look a little not quite right. For example, on this letter form of A, the downstrokes were thickened, but the first component wasn't thickened from the very top where the downstroke started, and both sections were thickened in a way that actually meant that part of the upstrokes were thickened. The third and final tip is just some good old practice. Practicing your recognition of downstroke areas and also just general practicing in your cursive can really have a great impact on how good your fauxligraphy can look. What I'm now going to do is go through and show you how I would thicken the downstrokes of each of the letters of the lowercase alphabet. There's also a link in the description box below that takes you to a free resource of how I do my lowercase alphabet in fauxligraphy. Hopefully you guys found that insightful. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts or feels, please do leave them in the comment section below. I love reading and replying to the things that you guys put down there. If you liked this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel to see the videos that I release every Thursday and Sunday. Until next time, bye!